We are joined now by Aرال Mרגלית, an Israeli opposition politician. He is a senior member of the Labor Party. Great to have you on the program. I understand you are very critical as well of the Prime Minister's visit to the U.S. and the pending speech to Congress on Tuesday. Tell us why.
Well, I'm not critical of the visit, but I'm very critical of the speech that he intends to give to Congress tomorrow, because I think it creates a split between the U.S. administration and the Israeli government at a time where the partnership needs to be really close because we have a big problem at hand. It also creates a split between the Democrats and the Republicans on Congress, where we need a unilateral decision against Iran as a threshold nuclear state.
You know, we got information a short time ago, really, that the U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, and it was backed up by spokeswoman Marie Harf, concerned that selective details about the negotiations would be released by Mr. Netanyahu during this speech. And they're very concerned about that, and this was sort of foreshadowed by Elise Labott yesterday after she got off the plane, saying that this would happen. Obviously, it's concerning the State Department. Would releasing information about the talks that the U.S. government doesn't want released, that's interfering in the U.S. government's negotiations, isn't it?
Well, I don't think he will give up secrets because, after all, I think he has an obligation to that. But here's this. You know, I represent the Labor Party. We are the challenging party and in Israel, and I hope that in 3 weeks we can present an alternative government for the leadership of Israel. We stand very much against this idea of Iran being a threshold nuclear state, because if we think that it sets the Middle East on a nuclear arms race and maybe a violent trajectory, which we don't want to happen. But we are committed to a dialogue, both with the U.S. administration and with the leading international countries that are leading the negotiations, in order to convey our views in a way that could be constructive between partners.
So it sounds like you're open to these negotiations. What kind of deal would you want?
Well, you know, I don't think that a country that wants civilian nuclear capabilities for its energy, I don't think it needs to have enrichment capabilities. I don't think we need ballistic missiles. And I certainly don't think that that country should be a hub for terrorist organizations across the Middle East, including ones on the borders of Israel like Hezbollah. So I do think there needs to be a commitment for a different path. And if there's a commitment for a different path, we, as the leaders of the country, are going to be ready for a different vision that Israel is ready to lead in the Middle East.
You mentioned something earlier that I'd like to pick up on, and that is, of course, the upcoming election in Israel. And while nobody doubts that Mr. Netanyahu, as most politicians in Israel are, desperately interested in the Iranian negotiations and what comes of them, one aspect is that this does it not divert attention away from very important domestic issues that would be dominating the headlines in Israel right now. And domestically, Mr. Netanyahu isn't doing as well on a whole raft of local issues. Do you think this is a distraction from the campaign and a bit unfair to the likes of you trying to go up against him?
Well, I do think the Iranian threat is a real threat, but I also think that Israel needs some clear and new messages on the internal fronts as well. People feel like Israel is a startup nation, and I personally was involved in building many companies, but the sense is that a lot of people are not enjoying this prosperity, and people feel like they need an additional chance in the north of the country, in the south of the country, in the Arab community, in the ultra-Orthodox people that want to contribute, want to be part of the economy, want affordable housing. And I think that Netanyahu has failed on most of these issues, and maybe now it's time for a change. The Labor Party, after all, we had Ben Gurion and Rabin. We want to come back into power with Herzog's leadership in order to present a new vision and a new direction for the country, both internally but also internationally in the region.
you touched on this a little bit, but I wanted to ask you further about, how you think Mr. Netanyahu should have gone about getting his grievances heard and getting people to act upon what he wants, his demands.
Well, I think that the most important thing is to identify the champion of the negotiation, which is the U.S. president and the U.S. administration, and be close to them as possible. And I think partners often are close and often, may have disagreements. I don't think that a showdown in Congress is the way to go, because I think it's kind of a Western showdown, and it's not the kind of drama we need. We need to go into closed doors, to have a serious discussion, to put the possibilities on the table. The U.S. and the international community are, after all, leading this. Israel should be heard, and we need to try to shape this in the right direction.
But to that point, very, very briefly, if I may, Israel is being heard. The U.S. is very well aware of what Israel wants out of these negotiations. One thing that strikes me is there's a lot of criticism from Israel of a deal that has not been done, has not been finalized, and certainly has not been announced. Would it not be better to wait and see what it is?
Well, I think this is the time to talk among partners and to figure this out detail by detail, because the devil could be in the detail. And I think that, the main idea is we have a different vision for the Middle East. The Middle East, that the moderate states are cooperating amongst them to fight the extremists, just like Jordan just fought ISIS, just like Egypt just fought Hamas and others. But let's unify and create a Middle East with a different vision, with economic development around agriculture, around water, around energy, around technology. We need a new phase in the Middle East. A nuclear Iran will take us back many years and will put us on a violent trajectory. We want to deny this and present a different vision.
Aral Margalit, Israeli opposition politician with the Labour Party. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.